Hello and welcome to the 42 Rugby Weekly. Murray Kinsella here, stepping into the rather intimidating hosting shoes of Gavin Casey. He's away, and I know keeping track of Kelly Harrington, absolutely bossing it over at the Olympics. Joined as always by Bernard Jackman. Birch, we made it to the last week of what has been the longest season ever. What a great match to finish, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think there has to be a better spectacle than we had last weekend, and I'm just fascinated to see. I think we know what the Boks are going to bring, but I'm fascinated to see what Gregor Townsend and Warren Gatland can do to try and unlock this vice-like grip that the Bok defence have had on us.
Yeah, well, we're also thrilled to be joined by top South African sports writer Craig Ray. Craig, thanks a million for jumping on. I've really enjoyed your stuff over on the Daily Maverick, so people should check that out. But how are you?
Good, thanks, Murray. Yeah, nice to be on. And yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you. Also quite glad that the series is coming to an end, but it's coming to an end with a decider, which is a rare thing, which is cool.
Yeah, we're in a strange place on this side of the world. There's an All-Ireland GA match clashing with the Lions on this Saturday, and people are now deciding whether they're going to watch that or the Lions, given the lack of build-up and hype here. What's it like over there? Maybe even in comparison to 2019 World Cup. Obviously, off the pitch, it's been a really tough time for South Africa. How is the build-up to the deciding test?
Yeah, it's a bit better. The first test was weird because we were still in level 4 lockdown, so no bars were open, no pubs, sports clubs, anything like that. So when I drove to the stadium through the centre of Cape Town, and through Greenpoint area where the stadium is, where there's tons of bars and restaurants, normally that would be people flowing out onto the street. It was like a ghost town as I drove to the stadium. I mean, it took me 3 minutes to get into the stadium. It's just something that doesn't happen. And then last week, for the second test, the bars had been reopened, and level 3, we had gone to level 3, and the streets were full of people, and there were just Bok jerseys everywhere, and the bars, people were spilling out of the bars. So at least there was atmosphere and excitement around the stadium, if not in the stadium.
Yeah, that definitely makes a difference. Obviously, Rassie has dominated the headlines. I know your piece today writing about him, the headline is Erasmus has challenged an entire system that needs an overhaul. Can you give us a sense of how this story has been perceived in South Africa by the Springboks fans, even by yourself? Because there, as you point out in your piece today, there are several strands to this.
Yeah, look, I mean, from a fan point of view, Rassie can do no wrong. So, Rassie's right, and that's pretty much the South African view, and as you say, it's a bit more layered than that. But as from a journalistic point of view, I understand why people are upset about the way he did it. I totally get that. But you've also got to wonder, at what point does someone say enough's enough? We keep sending videos, we keep sending clips to World Rugby, we keep asking for clarification, we keep having these same issues come up over and over again. And I can only, he's only talking from a South African point of view. I'm sure a lot of other coaches feel similarly in their games. And I guess he got to the point where it was about timing. There was a bit of the Gatland and the Lions sort of playmaking before the first test. The Boks had lost the second test. There was pressure, and he weighed up the decision whether it was wise to wait till after the series or try and get maximum benefit for the Springboks through doing it this way, but also knowing that he was going to be raked over the coals. So I think it comes down to a situation where I think the content of his message is strong and good. Perhaps the delivery and the timing is debatable, depending on which side of the fence you sit.
It's a very divisive issue, Birch. We talked about it last week, but it has been, I suppose, updated in the meantime with the misconduct charge against Rassie and SA Rugby. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but you also had this Marco Massotti figure, the head of consortium who owned the Sharks, coming out on Twitter yesterday saying he's got a team of New York lawyers ready. Yeah, it's a bit of posturing, is it really? But Birch, what's your take on this? He's been charged now, so clearly World Rugby are not standing for it.
Yeah, we spoke about this 2 weeks ago, and I agree with Craig. I think, unfortunately, we spoke about this on a pod probably during the year about how refereeing was struggling to keep up with the game and getting further and further left behind. And I think, sending in clips, I mean, every coach is doing that. Effectively, a couple of referees reached out to me after he posted that video, and they said now basically the world see our world. So effectively, referees are getting that kind of footage every week. But the problem is, we don't see any real improvement or consistency or action. So effectively, all we ever get as coaches get is apologies. And if Rassie waited till after the third test, what good is an apology? And I think also he's doing it from a position of strength. They've won the World Cup. Okay, they lost the first test match, but he wasn't under massive pressure for his jobs, and he did it. He did it in a way that wasn't, post-match press conference full of emotion. He doubled down throughout the week, and eventually on whatever it was, the Wednesday or Thursday, we got, an hour-long insight into where his grievances were. So I really do hope this is a turning point for World Rugby and, the officials. And I understand it's very difficult for them, but look, I thought the sighting process and what we saw on from second test showed up that it's miles behind where it needs to be. I mean, the one incident that they cited proved to be not punishable. You know what I mean? The Kyle Sinclair one that none of us saw. There was other stuff in that match that surely was worth a look at. But look at the whole thing is it's an amateurish system with professional people running it, professional people being paid to do it, and it's getting further behind. So look, let's get a rugby match on Saturday. Let Rassie defend himself and see if World Rugby are willing to make the changes internally to actually make sure someone like Rassie doesn't have to do this again.
I'll be fascinated to see what precedent World Rugby set with this. Just briefly on this Marco Massotti character, Craig, is this just a bit of posturing on Twitter?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I spoke to people at SA Rugby, and they were just like, "What? He's got nothing to do with this. Why is he even getting involved? Just,
but
stay out of it."
Surely the best lawyer in the world in America.
He well, maybe not when it comes to rugby laws, though. But he. It's interesting, though. He describes himself as owner, I think, in one of those remarks, which actually means he could be charged by World Rugby because that tweet is actually bringing the game into disrepute. Technically, he could be hauled up on charges as well for that tweet if he is the owner, as indeed he says he is. So, yeah, look, I think South Africa's got decent enough lawyers. Rassie will have legal representation, and, let's leave it at that. But I think it does call in... private equity is getting involved in rugby in a big way. And these are, firms putting in hundreds of millions into rugby. And, if the amateur, as Bert said there, the amateur side of sort of officiating and officialdom continues, you can't see that companies spending hundreds of millions on a product are going to sit back idly by and let this continue. So they might become players under using litigation, perhaps, to make a point in future.
I think that's a great point. I think, like, if you're private equity money and you've just invested a huge amount of your investors' funds in a game, and one of the most prestigious events is ruined by it's not a spectacle, and it's not all down to the officials. Obviously, there's a style of play issue as well, but effectively the game became so stop-start that it's not an attractive or as attractive proposition for new TV deals, for sponsorship, etc. So I do think, there's a play there in terms of the commercial side of it, but without doubt, they will start to flex their muscles in terms of what the product actually looks like eventually, and that's something that it's just, as far as I'm concerned, that's a given.
If you just take Rassie's 26 examples, and let's say the Lions had 14 Springbok examples that they didn't show, you've got a game, the pinnacle of the sport. Supposedly, the Lions against the world champions, where there's conceivably 40 glaring errors in a game from the officials. That is a problem that needs to be addressed, no matter how it's brought to the fore. And I'm not sure it is going to be addressed, and maybe it's going to take litigation from someone like a private equity investor to get us there, which, of course, no one wants to happen.
It's a tough old gig. The players probably made 100 errors combined between them as well. We should just briefly point out. So it's a tough old game. But just on the style of play thing, Craig, I mean, that's again been a big talking point in this part of the world. I know you've asked it in a couple of the press conferences. What is the perception amongst South African rugby of the style that's being played? I'm guessing no one cares if they're winning.
There's two styles of rugby: losing rugby and winning rugby. That's it, and no one cares. Bottom line is in South Africa, they do not care. The Springboks are winning. They won the World Cup. If they win the Lion Series, no one is going to go, well, they kicked the ball a lot. They won. It's that simple.
Bert, have you got reservations about the style? And we must say the Lions have basically mimicked their style. They've brought nothing in terms of attacking ball in hand rugby.
No, I admire the box. They've found a game model that's suited to them. They're implementing it every week, and I think it's up to the rest of the world. You know, I'm fascinated to see what the All Blacks will do against the Lions. If the Lions don't, throw something at them this week, I think the Lions deserve an equal amount of more criticism than the box, because they're trying to play a game that's actually not really, they're not really suited to against a team like South Africa, and like you have to be a little bit braver, I think. And I think they got selection wrong before they started the tour, and they just lacked any real identity as a team, and they got carried away with the very good results against poor opposition. And I don't know what they felt, if they felt that was going to be easy against the box. But if you look at the stats, I mean, they're not the first team to struggle against the box defense, but you would like at least them to fire a shot. And unfortunately, at the moment, after 2 tests, I can't really see any real clear strategy to go and find a weakness. And there is weaknesses in it, and I'm not saying they're easy get, but you gotta at least try. And yeah, so I'd be more critical of the Lions than the box, to be honest. The box don't try and pretend or anything other than very strong set piece, very good defense, pressurized kicking game, and they score tries off the back of that anyway. So it's not as if they don't score tries. So I would expect the Lions to have been a little bit braver and more ambitious, but the selections have been like mind-boggling. I mean, to go in, like, to want to play wide and not have a playmaker, not have a 13 who's a comfortable passer, leaving Slade at home, going with Elliot Daly in the first test, Chris Harris in the second test, and now another combination this weekend. It's just it's all over the place.
Selection is huge, Craig. The box are missing Faf de Klerk and Peter Steph de Toy, 2 huge figures. What will they miss exactly, and how can they compensate for those losses?
Yeah, they're both massive. I mean, look, they played pretty much 75 minutes without Peter Steph de Toy last week. I know he only went off after 20 minutes, but he ruined his shoulder early in the game and was really not in it for the next 15 minutes. But Faf is big because he's a great defender in the Springbok setup. He has this sort of almost free role where he shoots up out of the line, makes a play, also reads the game very well. Yeah, Kobus Reinach's a lovely rugby player, but I don't think you can teach anyone to read the game as well as Faf does. I think that's an innate sort of gift that he has. So he will anticipate a kick coming over the top, or they're going to move it wide and he'll run a covering line. And you can train that and you can practice that, and they would have done, but it's a massive blow. You don't just replace Faf de Klerk that easily, as good as Reinach and Jantjies are. So that's going to be an area that perhaps the Lions will look to exploit, maybe testing the defence of the Springboks with some more chips over the top, because will Reinach read them as well as Faf did last week? I don't know. They'll have to probe there a little bit and see how that looks. Peter Steph, well, we know when he's playing, his work rate is second to none. He makes a lot of tackles. He covers a lot of ground. He plays in the wide channels on second and third phase. And so he won't be there. And Franco Mostert isn't as mobile as a flank. So don't expect the Springboks to speed this one up any more than they did last week because of that. So that is an issue. But they do have mobility off the bench with Kwagga Smith and Marco van Staden. I'm a bit confused by the Morné Steyn selection, to be quite honest. I know he can kick well for goal. I'm just not sure. Is he even going to get on if the Boks are in a tight match? Are they going to risk taking Pollard off, assuming he's fit and feeling strong enough to go the full 80? Are they going to take Pollard off if the game's in the balance? I very much doubt it. So I don't see, I just see him as insurance if Pollard goes down. That's the only reason I can think of that selection.
Yeah, well, it could be quite an incredible story if he does have a say. Obviously kicked that winning penalty 2009, all those years ago. He's 37 now, Birch. We got a question on Twitter from Alf Deacon. He said, if the game goes down to the wire, is your money on Morné Steyn or Finn Russell?
Morné Steyn, 100%. I think I can understand why they obviously used to they were going with a 6-2 split. I think if Pollard got injured early, they'd like to have Morné Steyn, and they can just play territory and back him to kick goals. And Pollard has been a little bit, he's still very good, but his kicking hasn't been at the standard maybe we're used to. So if he was to have a real off day, I know it'll be a big call to take him off, but you know what you're going to get with Mornay. So yeah, I prefer to have Mornay Steyn coming on in Test 3 with all that experience and pragmatism and assurance in goal kicking than Finn Russell. Let's be honest, if Finn Russell's coming on, the Lions are in trouble. You know what I mean? So he's coming on to try and make things happen. And if you're Jacques Nienaber and the Boks defense coach and you see him come on, okay, he can do stuff, but you also think you can capitalize on the fact he hasn't played for 4 weeks, and it's obviously going to be a stressful environment, and he's going to be trying things. So I think it's a bit late to be bringing him in. To be honest, I think. I think that's actually not really strengthening the Lions. I think he'll get spooked by the rush and end up running up his own bum.
I can imagine Steyn kicking that winning drop goal. Just on the bomb squad, Bert, you did a really good piece of analysis after that second test about their impact. They're obviously back to 5-3 now. Does that diminish the Springboks' overall power, do you think?
I look at it, it's injury enforced, but I mean, to be able to bring on Malcolm Marks, Trevor Niakane and Vincent Koch, and obviously the two fetchers. I think it is a bit of a stretch on Mossad. I just think Lou de Jager, the impact he had last week, he has to start. And I think, it's no coincidence that they scrummed and mauled a lot better with him. He's just a bigger, more powerful man. And they now have 3 line-out options, obviously with Mossad in the back row, which they lost when Peter Steff went off. So, I mean, I think their line-out looked really vulnerable when they had Sia, Khaleesi, Vise and Quagga Smith in the back row. So I think, look, it's set up for line-out, both defensively and offensively, and I think scrum power. So, look, it's not as strong without 6, but I mean, they should be, they just have momentum now, and with the French referee, if they can show that dominance at maul and scrum again, it's going to be very difficult for the Lions to win the game, I think.
Craig, can you sum up how the confidence levels are in South African rugby?
Well, I don't think anyone's overly confident. I mean, I certainly not. I mean, the first test the Boks lost. Okay, there's lots of issues around it, but they lost. This Lions team, was leading at halftime in the second test, and actually up until an hour mark, it was 11-9. There was nothing in it. And if it's the same situation, 1 or 2 points in it at the hour mark, who's going to have more in the tank in the last 20? I mean, that's going to be interesting. But the Springboks do have momentum now. They have confidence, and I think that second half last week gave them a massive boost of confidence and momentum. And if they make a good start on Saturday with Lurt de Jager, if the pack gets on top early, they'll just build on that momentum and rumble on from there. And I think, looking at the Lions selection, I know Warren Gatland's made some bold calls before and they've paid off. But, it's his third different centre pairing in 3 tests. It's, Bandiaki hasn't played for 3 weeks. Finn Russell hasn't played for a month. There's a lot of, I don't know, maybe they know more than me. Well, they're sure they know more than me. But just looking from the outside, it looks slightly desperate, some of these calls. And maybe it has to be. I mean, it's a winner-take-all match. Why not? You've got the squad. You've got the players. I just wonder how much Gregor Townsend's had to do with that selection, and Gatland's sort of gone, okay, because the Lions have shown no real attacking ambition in the series, in the test matches so far. And now to suddenly expect them to be this whirlwind attacking force in the third test when the stakes are so high it's quite a stretch to believe it's going to go like that.
It's going to be interesting either way. Before we let you go, have you seen much of our very small Irish and UK media contingent over there?
Just on match days, that's it. We're all so separated. Such a weird tour. I mean, it's not a tour at all. It's you go to the venue and you run into people and that's it. I mean, I know the touring guys will stick together, but I was hoping to go up to Joburg and spend some time there and travel around and do those kind of things that you would normally do. And the fact that none of the tests are at altitude is a problem. I think that would have been great for the series. The Springboks, I'll say this, they don't generally play a fast-paced game in Cape Town. It's just something about Cape Town. They don't. It happens occasionally, but Joburg. I mean, you would have seen Springbok All Black tests at Ellis Park, or they are just such high octane. People call the Springboks boring, but when they get involved with the All Blacks on the high felt, those games are a million miles an hour. and it's all about momentum at rucks, and and then they do swing the ball and score 6 tries to 5 or 6 tries to 4 in a match. They can do it, but I just think something about Cape Town.
Well, listen, hope you can get maximum enjoyment out of it. We really appreciate the insight, and we'll hopefully catch you soon. Cheers, Craig.
See you, Craig. Bye-bye.
Great stuff from Craig there, and really good, Birch, to get the insight from over that side of the woods. What about the line selection then? You mentioned earlier on, like, they have jumped around a fair bit. We've got 6 changes in total. Liam Williams, Josh Adams, Bundy Aki, Ali Price, Wyn Jones and Ken Owens coming into the starting 15. You're kind of concerned more than excited, I think, by the selection.
Yeah, look, I think I can see completely why Wyn Jones and Ken Owens comes in. I think Luan Cowan-Dickey's been really good, but just you probably need that partnership of himself and Wyn Jones together on the hooker and loosehead side to just stop Bungie and Frans Malherbe, just getting into that little gap that they were getting to last week. And obviously in the second half, it just, when the replacements came on, the scrum just disintegrated. So Ken Owens has been there, done that. And I can see why he started. Wyn Jones was going to start the first test, and again, he's probably looked the loosehead, most capable of winning penalties. Now, I don't think he's dominating. I just think he's very crafty, and he's just very tricky to play against, which is a skill in itself. But and he makes the referee make decisions, and they have tended to go his way over the last year. So that's understandable. Like, I thought Liam Williams should have been starting in Test 1 and Test 2. I mean, Stuart Hogg was out of form at the tail end of the season. You know what you're going to get. You have to be secure under your high ball, and Liam Williams is the best fullback in this squad for that. And Josh Adams again was a bit of a strange one. I know he had one average performance, but you just back him as a warrior and as a competitor. And his try scoring ability, but mainly his toughness, to be honest, was something I felt that the Lions have lacked. I'm probably surprised. I am surprised Duhan van der Merwe held his place, and I know there's a stat going around that 11 times the Lions he kick chased, we won the ball back. But in general, I don't think I think his super strength is his power. And I think of all the international teams in the world where that isn't that important as a winger, it's against the box, because they'll eat that power up for breakfast. You need to be either incredibly quick or incredibly agile, or really mentally tough. Which I think Josh Adams is, and feisty to get into them. And I just think he's going to get targeted again. And I think if Jack Nienaber had to put up weak links and target points in this box, for this test, he's the most glaring one for me at the moment. And then, am I happy to see Bundy in? Yeah, I am. And I think him and Robbie obviously have a relationship, but it's just not knowing what your 12 and 13 are going to be like, and not having, I think leaving Sexton behind has caused a lot of problems, because you could have went Sexton, Farrell, 10, 12, and I think Johnny would have. And I don't think Johnny would allow the attack be as poor as it is, and that's the beauty of someone like Sexton. I'm not saying that Bigger or Farrell aren't, drivers of things, but I couldn't see Johnny going out into test match 1 or 2 without a better plan. And that's, you see them bringing Mornay Stain in as a 37-year-old to potentially help them win a series. I am in the favour of bringing Finn Russell in when it's shit or bust. I just think you're better off having someone who has been in these situations many times and has won and failed. And I think that selections, like I said, not bringing Slade, not bringing Ringrose, trying Elliot Daly at 13, Chris Harris at 13, not having an obvious second playmaker, when surely the part of the attacking strategy has to be to get outside that blitz. But then if you put in two non-passers, how are you going to get around it? It's just, I don't know what you think, Murray, but I think unless Gregor Townsend pulls a rabbit out of a hat, the question marks around his ability as an attack coach. And just last thing on this before I let you talk, let's not forget that he has gone away from the attacking philosophy that probably he made his name in. Like the part of the World Cup review that and Scotland bombed at the World Cup was that they didn't have the tools or the whatever to be able to break down international rugby defences. And Scotland have got better results without being outstanding by any manner of means, but have got better results being more pragmatic. So, I'm not surprised really that I think his philosophy has become mixed, and that seems to be the way the team are playing.
Because we got a question from the members WhatsApp group. That's members.the42.ie if people want to join up there for extra pods, etc. But Mick asked, has Gregor Townsend underperformed on this Lions tour, given the non-existent, as he calls it, attacking game plan, or are there external factors? And obviously, Gatland is the one with the final say here and decides how they go. We saw lots of different strands to their play in those build-up games. We saw that profile of the forwards who could pass, tip on, tip in, link out the back. We saw some nice attacking shape, obviously against defenses that are not even on the same planet as the Boks, but maybe you thought there were hints there, and we just haven't really seen it in the test. They've tried a few little things, but their execution has been actually quite poor as well. Even if you think of that one where they tried to cross kick to Maro Itoje back over Faf de Klerk off one of the lineouts, and you think that's actually a pretty clever idea, but they just didn't execute it. Certainly they didn't look like they'd practice it under that kind of pressure, and there is no pressure like that. So it is a big question. One for you, Birch. This is from D McBiggie on Twitter. It says, should in situ national team coaches, i.e. Townsend now or Gatland in the last two tours, should they be considered for future tours so as to avoid any perceived or otherwise bias to national team players, i.e. they want to avoid upsetting their own and develop their own at the expense of others? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, like, look, at the narrative is that more Scots are playing in test matches because of Gregor, and we don't know. We don't know how those selection meetings are being held. I do think that Warren. This isn't stereotype. Like, it's hard to say this is a Warren team, if you get me. So over the last 10 years, obviously watching him with Wales and the last two Lions tours, I've always certainly had the sense that Warren is driving this, right? And even the whole conversation around the first test and how the selection meeting went, and there wasn't alignment, and like I wonder and look, he's been there, done that, but let's not forget he's coming off an average season in Super Rugby with a difficult season with the Chiefs, and has he changed as a coach, and is it more shared ownership, which is great in certain environments, but I think the challenge is for national coaches to go in there and not bat for their own players, because they have to go back and coach them later on. So I can absolutely see the point of where that could lead to trouble, but it's been a factor in the past and hasn't been really raised to be sufficient enough to change it. The other challenge is, if you leave out those coaches, you'd imagine that the best coaches are coaching the national side. So you're hampering yourself then. I'm not saying that there's not guys who can't do it, but that's the challenge of that. And also, let's be honest, if the Lions pulled something out of the bag on Saturday, we'd say it was genius. The way they've rotated players and brought Finn Russell back from the wilderness. But like, you think of Ian Henderson, captain the Lions against Springbok A's, which you would say was a dress rehearsal, has seen no test rugby. Adam Beard comes in. I know Adam Beard came on and did well and defended them all, and the Maul is a threat, so they need to focus on that. But Ty Byrne hasn't really got a fair shot off the bench, I don't think, and he's out now for Sam Simmons in effect, really. And the Boks won, I think, 70 out of 70 rooks of the weekend. So are you going to just let them have the ball and try and deal with the high ball, or would it not be great to, let's not forget, if you catch the high ball from a rook, you're 25 meters further back than you would be if you'd got a penalty or turnover where the rook was. And I just don't think the Boks are going to be, when you coach a team that plays against Ty Byrne all week, you're talking about, see that scrum cap, see that scrum cap, see that scrum cap. You got to be effective, you got to be accurate, because if he gets a sniff, it's gone. And I don't see them really. I know Curry's not bad on the ball, but I don't see them being worried about the Lions at the breakdown, which is, you need to give them things to worry about. And from an attacking point of view, we haven't given them enough to worry about. From a set piece point of view, we haven't given enough to worry about. From an aerial collision, okay, we won some ball back in test one, but realistically, I don't see them being afraid of a hell of a lot of what we've shown so far.
Like, you're looking at Wyn Jones being the biggest jackal threat in the pack, and he has been missed in that area. He's excellent over the ball. But you're right, the Lions have this sense around them of kind of stumbling towards their identity, and hopefully for them it clicks this weekend. But you've seen them, even with the mixing and matching of the teams, certain players suggesting tempo, others suggesting a kick battle. And I suppose that is part of the challenge. But in previous Lions tours, we've probably seen a stronger sense of what their identity is going to be coming into the tour based on the players they've got.
Yeah, and in fairness, Murray, like normally Finn Russell, Adam Beard will be playing midweek games. So, you know, we could go, wow, he's in on form. Like, the challenge we have is we're looking back. And Ian Henderson as well. I mean, he could have used midweek games to push ahead of Adam Beard. But the challenge we have is that for those players, it's effectively what they did up as far as Springbok A is what we remember. And after that, it's all about the coaches in terms of what they see at training, but also obviously what they feel they need to stop the box. And there's no doubt Adam Beard is there to try and, you know, disrupt that line-out maul, which became an Achilles heel at the weekend.
I was going to ask you about that next. We know the aerial battle is going to be absolutely pivotal, and hopefully from the Lions' point of view, Liam Williams will be big in that area. What about the maul and scrum, Birch? Can they turn that around given the dominance the Boks had in the last quarter of the second test? Is that something you can fix in a week with a different referee and a couple of different pictures?
You can, but I think you can't allow them show dominance. And I think what Wyn Jones is very good at is if he loses the hit, he collapses it and he basically gets a reset. And I think what the Lions need to do is they need to go to ground, go up, maybe go around the side, but not go backwards. And, you know, unfortunately, they showed a couple of pictures last weekend, the last scrum penalty, I think in the 75th minute particularly, where they just got disintegrated and went backwards. And if they show that to Matthew Reynal in the first 20 minutes, he will back the Boks all day. And if the Lions go down, up after that, he'll be very clear in his mind, comfortable in his mind that the Boks are dominant and the Lions are the ones, you know, pulling tricks. So I think they need it. It's a huge test for Rob McBride, I think, this week. You know, in terms of his ability to technically be able to fix some of those scrum issues, and I think Tig's bind is quite loose as well and quite long. I think there's little things that worry me in terms of individuals, probably not as tight in certain areas as the Boks are, for example, and it is hard to see. You know, I just think that the Jager, his power in the second row as well is influential. You know, I think Mossart isn't a heavy duty lock, and they've got two tight head locks effectively. The Boks have now starting, and yeah, Kitchoff is obviously, I think, a good operator. I don't see them stopping it, to be honest, and that's why I backed the Boks to win, because I don't think the Lions. Okay, it mightn't be as obvious as last week's dominance was, but I still think they'll edge that pack battle, scrum, line-out maul, and I don't think there's any way back from there.
I'm with you. I'm edging towards Boks, and even still, the fact that they've selected Mornay Stain on the bench suggests that they think it's going to be really narrow. Hopefully we get a better spectacle, but it's going to be a battle again. Just briefly, there's another big test this weekend. At the moment, we're not sure it's going to be on TV in Ireland and the UK as things stand. All Blacks versus Wallabies, Bledisloe won. We've got the Wallabies missing the likes of Marika Corambetti from their drinking session. The three Barretts are on the All Blacks bench. How do you see this one going? It'll be really interesting.
Yeah, look, I think it's obviously disappointing for Dave Rennie to have a disciplinary issue this week, but he's made the right call. He's handed out the punishment. I like this Australian team in terms of where they're going. You know, I think there's some new talent coming through the franchise is there, and I think they've got a very good head coach and a good coaching staff as well, with likes of Wisemantel, you know, part of it, Peter Duplessis, part of the scrum. Their scrum is improving. Look at it, but you gotta love the All Blacks, particularly the back row. You know, Sevilla, Ione, and Dalton Papali'i. You know, having the three Barretts on the bench. You know, Aaron Smith, I think, is playing his 100th game. You know, yeah, I'd be fancying the All Blacks. Now, I do think the All Blacks, I think it's a huge rugby championship for Ian Foster. given, what happened in the World Cup. And just a couple of little bits of rumours around kind of the player's ability, faith in his ability to turn things around. And then you've got, this guy in the background, Scott Robertson, who can do no wrong, So I think the pressure's on the All Blacks more so than normal. And if they're going to make a change, if the NZRU are going to make a change, they'll have to do it. I think this at the end of this cycle to be ready. So I think it's going to be fascinating, this Rugby Championship, in terms of, particularly how the All Blacks perform. I think the Aussies are on the right track, but just mightn't be good enough this weekend, or maybe not this year, but we'll get there.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we'll be able to watch that match. But Birch, enjoy the final lines test. Same applies to everyone who's listening in. Thanks a million for doing that all season, really. This is actually our last episode for the season. It has been a long one. We are back on Saturday post-match for a members podcast, and then on Monday for a video analysis review show. You can join up at members.the42.ie. But that is it for the 42 Rugby Weekly for this 2020-21 season. We'll be back in September very soon, just around the corner, and really looking forward to building up to the new season. But for now, enjoy the final lines test.